So just having a wander around Alex today, looking up the cloud. He probably stuck those on the ground. Oh look, some BEN&JAH-SUNs. Aren't they fucking awesome? I wonder who puts those out. I don't think sure it's going to come out very well on the camera. I'm just sort of wandering. Morning. So just wandering around Alex Island. I'm not going to show you them because I just don't really like filming people in that situation who aren't having a great time without their permission. But behind me, we've got a couple of people clearly homeless living on blankets on the street. I have never seen that in Alex, ever. And I mean, it's almost, you know, sort of once upon a time you would think someone did that in Alex and probably swooped up the street and given a duvet, or swooped up the street and put in a second chucked in the clutha. But it's not part of Alex's rural, true blue economy. So again, that's just like I was saying beforehand, like on the surface everything looks quite peachy, but if you look a bit closer, actually I don't even need to do that because Jason's been in there already. Good on you, Jace. So the other thing I just sort of finished this clip off with is Joseph Mooney, MP for Southland. I honestly don't even know anything about this guy. And again, it's that whole sort of, the way things are promoted with this sort of cult of personality, or as I like to call it, the cult of personality, is that we have all these, a few MPs at the top whose names we know because they get a lot of television time and the photo ops. And yet, and when we go out to election time, you've got your local election person, and I'm normally standing next to a picture of BEN&JAH-SUN or the babyface assassin Hipkins. They're not normally sort of like, you know, out there enough by themselves because they don't have a brand that's recognisable enough. So that's an indictment again on the democratic process, that we only know the people in the paper. We don't actually know our own. You know, most Kiwis couldn't name the majority of people in the cabinet, and that actually includes me. I'll have to, you know, go away and probably if I looked at the list, I'd go, yeah, but there's still probably ministers there that I probably should know, but they just don't get the exposure anymore because it's like something happens to the Ministry of Transport. It's not the Ministry of Transport that fronts up and deals with acts. Oh no, it's Mr. Hipkins or BEN&JAH-SUN. So again, it's this sort of situation where we are being slowly, brick by brick, just another brick in the wall, removed from the democratic process itself. I was seeing a thing in the newspaper today, or yesterday, and it was Matthew Horton, Bryce Edwards, both long-term political commentators, but also long-term political commentators who have been employed at one time or another by the National Party or the Labour Party. Bryce Edwards, again, like I remember him gushing about how the grooming job on Jacinda was much more sophisticated than the one that they did on Helen Clark. And it was like, I was thinking, you guys listening to yourself? You understand when people elect someone, they're actually meant to be electing someone who says, this is what I stand for, and not a lolly rapper. And yet these guys can't, oh no, that's perfectly fine. We're going to make this person, you know, the spin doctors have taken over. But anyway, Matthew Horton and Brian Edwards were suggesting that that National and Labour might think about forming a grand coalition like they did during wartime. Even that scares me, the idea that we are comparing ourselves into a wartime footing, which is actually what I said to you beforehand. A lot of what I've seen in terms of the social engineering is sort of like getting us back into like being good little people that turn out the lights at night time and be quiet because, you know, be careful, loose lips sink ship. Really sinking us back into that kind of World War II, World War One. We're just there to be do as we're told, for in the interest of the greater good, of course. And what they were arguing was they're saying, well, they need to do this to stop the fringe extremist parties. And I think it was Liz Gunn that they cited. I may not get that right, but it's like of that calibre. But they're saying like this person is rated 0.1% in the polls. So you're going, well, if they're not actually going to score anything, they've got to get a seat, because you can't get a seat with 0.1% of the polls. Then why do you need to have the idea that suddenly the idea of National and ACT working together is actually okay? And these guys are meant to be political commentators who are supporting the democratic process, and they can't actually see the hypocrisy of what they're saying. And it's like, okay, let's say, worst case scenario, the extremists did take over the government. You know what? That's kind of how democracy works. If that's actually what enough people in the country feel that they actually want, and some of these guys I definitely do not, Liz Gunn being one of them, support, I think generally speaking those votes are actually wasted votes, and I think there's been so many different candidates put out there that it's actually designed to create a Mexican firing squad. That's like a circle which fires upon itself, not a very PC term, but don't blame me, I didn't make up with it, but it is a good term, I do like it. The concept is that we have to be afraid of these extremist parties, but if they're actually getting the votes, majorities, they're no longer extremists. What we really need, what they keep missing, is the same with the Christchurch shooting. Instead of creating laws to go lock up guns and do this and do that, security, and actually put all the people who aren't going to go and blow up mosques in a prison, they've turned around and created laws that actually, what I'm saying is that what they should have done is really focus on who the gunman was, get to the root of why he did that. What made somebody so full of hate that they did that. And I suspect once we know that reason, we got a very good idea about what Christchurch shooting was about. But what we also do is we expose the root core, and that's really what we need to address. So when people turn around and talk about populist MP, figures, and you turn around and you look at someone like either Donald Trump or Jacinda Ardern, whether you love them or hate them, doesn't matter, but if you're crediting them with power, you're wrong, because all they are is a symptom of what's going on. So voting them in or voting them out doesn't actually change the issues which are occurring. So, largely a lot of the stuff in terms of the radicalisation of the working class right wing in the United States, it's driven by economics. It's driven by people not having enough money to put food on the table. And, as I've said beforehand, if you play any nerdy game of, world domination, it's always the formulas if it includes the whole process of things like war, defence, health, education. The formula in any of those games, always the guy that puts his money into education and health wins the game, whereas the people that put their money into like armed police and secret police and armed forces, you end up eventually having a pissed off population that actually overthrows you, and you lose. Or you spend so much money, resources, and weapons, you can't actually gain feed your populace. So really, if you want to get rid of things like racism or hate crime, having a functioning economy where everyone's getting a slice of the pie is integral to that. And when you don't have that, that's when your extremists occur, and that's largely because of the adoption in New Zealand of foreign media buying out local media and starting to sell the narrative they want to push overseas. And again, get off your social media, he says, posting on social media. Actually it doesn't matter, because you probably 20 people will see this, because the algorithms have gone from me being 135,000 people seeing this every week to 400 people a month. So I'm kind of like talking to myself almost, but that's the whole point. Those algorithms control what you see, and same thing when you're foreign owner leadership, it controls what you see. So you actually start to focus on the issues that the power bees want you to focus on, and not the issues that actually could affect your day-to-day life. So we've had that issue, plus the adoption and combination of that of free market economics, Chicago School of Economics, which has largely, in terms of straight out statistics, whether it's Labour or national government, all you can see is the wealth gap between the haves and the have-nots is widened. And of course, as that inequality occurs, we start to see more of these fringe politics. So, no, actually, not letting people actually have the fringe beliefs is actually not the gateway entrance to having a functioning, stable democracy. It's actually the gateway entrance to making sure you have more extremists and more fringe beliefs. Anyway, love you and leave you. This is the Ben&JAH Election Special 2023.